The metallic tang of the night air bites at your exposed skin, a familiar, unwelcome companion in the desolate expanse of the border fence patrol zone at midnight. Here, the only constant is the low, rhythmic thrum of the electrified barrier, a monotonous pulse against the vast, indifferent desert sky. You walk the line, a shadow among shadows, the gravel crunching beneath your worn boots a solitary symphony. Each step is a testament to the life you now inhabit, a stark, unforgiving landscape mirroring the one etched within your own soul. The moon, a sliver of bone, casts long, distorted figures from the skeletal mesquite trees, their branches reaching like gnarled fingers towards a truth you once chased with an unyielding fervor. That fervor, now a dying ember, occasionally flares, fueled by the phantom scent of old ink and the ghost of a name, the journalist. His unsolved murder, a cold case that became the icy tombstone of your career, still whispers through the quiet hours. You carry it, a lead weight in your gut, a perpetual reminder of the badge you surrendered, the reputation you watched crumble to dust. You trace the fence with your gaze, a meaningless vigil. Your breath plumes in the frigid air, dissipating quickly, much like your hopes did that agonizing year. You remember the sharp edges of the official reports, the dismissive tone that labeled it a random act, a street crime gone wrong. That prohibition, that enforced blindness, had cost you everything. A distant rumble disturbs the desolate quiet, a low growl that cuts through the hum of the fence. You stop, your hand instinctively dropping to your side, to where a holster once rode. The habit is a reflex, a phantom limb that still aches. Headlights materialize on the horizon, two piercing eyes cutting through the inky blackness, growing steadily larger. This stretch of road is rarely traveled, especially at this hour, by anything other than your own patrol vehicle. A prickle of unease, sharp and unwelcome, crawls up your spine. It pulls to a stop a few yards from you, kicking up a small cloud of dust that hangs suspended in the headlight beams. The driver's side window hums down, revealing a face you haven't seen in years, a face etched with the same weariness that claims your own. It's not a greeting, but an acknowledgement, heavy with unspoken history. You're a hard man to find. You offer no reply, merely a slow, deliberate tilt of your head. Your gaze flickers to the passenger seat, then back to his face, searching for the reason behind this nocturnal visitation. You counter, your voice a low growl, rough from disuse. He leans forward, his elbows resting on the steering wheel, his gaze unwavering. A ghost, Marcus. One of yours. Your jaw tightens, a muscle clenching involuntarily. The journalist. It's a thread. A very specific, very dangerous thread. He pauses, letting the words settle, letting the weight of them press down on you. You can feel the shift, the faint stirring of something long dormant within you. The former colleague replies, his voice laced with a grim certainty. And to the prominent politician at its head. The words hit you like a physical blow. A sudden, sharp intake of the frozen air. The politician. The official reports had dismissed it, buried it. But now, after all these years, the ghost of the journalist was stirring, and with it, the specter of the conspiracy you had only glimpsed. They want you on it, Marcus, the former colleague states, his gaze piercing. Unofficially, of course. No badge. No public connection. Just you. Digging in the dirt you always excelled at. You stare at him, the moon reflecting in your eyes, a swirling vortex of conflicting emotions. Disbelief, a bitter anger, but also a nascent spark. A chance. A chance to finally untangle the knot that had choked your life. The border fence hums, a low, insistent reminder of the line you'd crossed, and the new, dangerous one you were now being asked to step over. The moon, a silver coin tossed carelessly across the velvet sky, mirrored the turmoil. In your gut. Disbelief, yes, a bitter anger that gnawed at the edges of your resolve, but beneath it all, a nascent spark. A fragile ember in the ash heap of your ruined career. A chance. The word itself tasted like rust and hope on your tongue. A chance to finally untangle the knot that had choked your life, to give voice to the journalist's silenced truth. But it was also a precipice, a dizzying drop into the very abyss that had swallowed you whole once before. So, Marcus, the colleague's voice, a low rumble cutting through the quiet hum of the night, is that a yes? Are you content to let the dust settle on your ghosts forever? You lifted your gaze from the cracked asphalt of the abandoned lot. The distant city lights a blurry halo against the horizon. The offer hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Redemption. A word you had long since banished from your lexicon, believing it a cruel jest. Their eyes, wide with a final, unspoken question, haunted your waking hours and invaded your restless sleep. You swallowed, the dry rasp in your throat mirroring the barren landscape of your professional life. What are the terms? You finally managed, the words a gravelly confession. Completely off the books. No badge, no resources, no backup. You're a ghost, Marcus. If you find anything, it goes through me. If you get caught, you're on your own. And if you fail. The unspoken consequence hung heavy, a familiar guillotine blade. You get nothing but what you already have. The raw truth of it was a bitter tonic, but you had drunk worse. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the distant wail of a siren, a mournful cry that seemed to lament your very existence. You thought of the journalist, their relentless pursuit of truth, their brilliant mind extinguished too soon. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about you. I've got the initial files. Everything we had, and some things we didn't officially log. It's all waiting for you at the old warehouse down by the docks. Nobody goes there anymore. You'll find a key under the loose brick by the loading bay door. Be discreet, Marcus. More than your life depends on it now. The next morning found you in the cavernous, dust-choked expanse of the derelict warehouse, the air thick with the scent of decay and forgotten industry. Sunlight, fractured into golden spears by the grimy windows, illuminated motes dancing in the stillness. This was it. Your fingers, calloused and trembling slightly, reached for the topmost folder. The paper, brittle with age, crackled under your touch. Yellowed news clippings, grainy photographs, handwritten notes scrawled in a tight, precise script, the journalist's script. You pulled out a stapled stack of reports, the official police findings from all those years ago. Random act of violence, the conclusion read, stark and unfeeling. A lie you had always suspected. A convenient fiction designed to seal the lid on an inconvenient truth. You sifted through the meticulous details, your gaze sweeping over dates, witness statements, forensic reports, searching for the discordant note, the thread that had unraveled before. Hours blurred into a timeless haze. Then you found it. Tucked deep within a subfolder marked Personal Notes, Unverified Leads, a single sheet of paper, folded multiple times. It wasn't an official document, it was a page torn from a small, spiral-bound notebook. The journalist's distinctive hand filled the page, a frantic energy vibrating from the loops and slashes of the pen. Most of it was a jumble of names, dates, and what appeared to be code words, but one entry leaped out at you, stark and unsettling. Meeting, contact K. Not just a location, but a specific time, a clandestine rendezvous. Why would a brilliant investigative journalist be meeting someone in such a desolate, high-risk area and Project Chimera? This was no random act. This was a targeted silencing. You leaned back in the creaking chair, the old wood groaning under your weight. The dust motes still danced in the dying light, but now they seemed to swirl with a malevolent purpose. You pulled out a more recent newspaper, one of the few you had bothered to glance at in your self-imposed exile. The front page headline screamed about the rising popularity of the prominent politicians' presidential campaign, their rhetoric echoing promises of national security and border integrity. The politicians' platform, so heavily focused on border security, suddenly seemed to hum with an insidious undertone. Could Project Chimera be related to something happening at the border? Something the journalist had uncovered, something so volatile it had cost them their life? The timing, the location, the politicians' current campaign, the pieces, once scattered and meaningless, began to align with a terrible, unsettling precision. You remembered the journalist's last phone call to you, just days before their murder. Now, the memory was a fresh wound. Your gaze fell back to the newspaper, to the politician's confident smile. Below it, a small article mentioned a recent security contract awarded to a private firm for enhanced surveillance technologies along the very border the journalist had been investigating. The name of the firm, a subsidiary of a larger conglomerate, was unfamiliar, but the politician's campaign had received significant donations from its parent company. The air in the warehouse grew heavy, charged with an unspoken threat. The initial threads of connection, subtle and disturbing, were now tightening around a truth far more sinister than you had imagined. Redemption, you realized, would not come easily. And this time, you knew, failure was not an option. The wind, a phantom limb, brushes against your face, carrying the scent of dry earth and distant industry. This is where it ended for the journalist, where your own career began its slow, agonizing unraveling. The desolate expanse stretches before you, an unyielding canvas of scrub brush and loose gravel, punctuated by the stark, skeletal spine of the border fence. You walk the path, your boots crunching on the loose stones, each step a deliberate echo in the vast quiet. You remember the initial investigation, the official report, a neat stack of lies, painting a picture of random violence, a wrong place at the wrong time. But the gnawing doubt, the details that never quite settled, had always lingered. The meticulous nature of the victim, a mind that crafted words like precise weapons, would not have stumbled into danger blindly. They were here for a reason. Your gaze sweeps the ground, searching for an anomaly, a whisper of truth the first wave of investigators missed. The fence wires glint with a cold indifference under the weak moonlight. You crouch near a weathered concrete post, the one closest to where the body was found, fingers sifting through the gritty soil. Not a footprint, not a discarded casing, but something smaller, almost swallowed by time and the elements. Beneath a loose stone, partially buried, your fingers snag on a small, smooth object. It's a polished river stone, common enough, yet a faint etching mars its surface. A symbol, almost imperceptible in the dim light. A stylized bird, wings spread, but its head is that of a serpent. And beside it, a series of precise, tiny pinpricks, like a miniature constellation, forming an almost imperceptible C and H. Chimera. The journalist didn't just stumble here, they left a message, a breadcrumb for anyone brave or foolish enough to follow. This wasn't random. This was a deliberate act, and the journalist was fighting back, even in their final moments. You slide into a worn booth, facing a man whose uniform, once crisp, now sags with the weight of years and routine. The patrol officer, a veteran of the local force, stirs his coffee, his eyes avoiding yours, fixed on the steam curling from his cup. Just a routine patrol, Marcus. Nothing out of the ordinary that night. Except the body, of course. His voice is flat, devoid of the camaraderie you once shared. The report said random. You believe that? You lean forward, your voice a low current against the diner's din. He shrugs, a practiced movement. What else was there to believe? A journalist in the wrong place. Happens. And Project Chimera? His hand stills, the ceramic mug clinking against the saucer. A flicker of something, fear or warning, crosses his face before it's masked. Never heard of it. Look, Marcus, you're digging up old bones. Some things are best left buried. For your own good. The last words are softer, a genuine caution, but laced with a palpable fear. The message is clear, drop it. Their face, a roadmap of hard living, tightens as you approach. Thorn. Something about Project Chimera? The informant shifts, uneasy, pulling their threadbare jacket tighter around them. They were digging where they shouldn't. Mentioned names, powerful names. Said it went higher than anyone would believe. Higher how? What names? A shake of the head. Don't ask me, Thorn. But I know this much, they weren't killed for their wallet. And the people who did it. They're still out there. They don't forget. A fire that burns clean. The pieces click into place. The cryptic stone, the officer's nervous evasion, the informant's stark warning. The initial conclusion of a random act was a carefully constructed facade. The journalist wasn't just investigating, they were exposing. And the forces at play were not only powerful enough to orchestrate a cover-up but ruthless enough to eliminate anyone who threatened their secrets. The air around you seems to thicken, heavy with unseen eyes and unheard warnings. And you, Marcus Thorn, are now directly in their path. The city's pulse, usually a dull thrum against your windowpane, now beats with the frantic rhythm of a snare drum. The cryptic stone, cold and heavy in your palm, feels less like a relic and more like a key, each facet a piece of the puzzle. The informant's raw voice, a rasping whisper about powerful men and buried truths, echoes in the quiet of your apartment, twisting the silence into something menacing. You see it now, Marcus. The initial conclusion, a random act of violence, was a meticulously crafted illusion, a stage set for public consumption. The journalist wasn't merely chasing a story, they were unearthing a rot that spread through the very sinews of power, exposing veins of corruption that pulsed beneath the polished surface of the city. The air in your small study is thick with the scent of old paper and the lingering phantom of stale coffee. Spread across the worn mahogany, the journalist's life unfurls before you, stacks of notebooks filled with spidery script, printouts riddled with annotations, digital files splayed across your screen. You trace the lines of their investigations, the meticulous cross-referencing, the relentless pursuit of discrepancies. Their focus narrowed, you observe, in the final months. Your fingers dance across the keyboard, pulling up public records, campaign finance reports, land deeds. The politicians' rhetoric had always centered on this initiative, promising jobs, growth, a brighter future. But the journalists' notes tell a different story. They speak of inflated costs, land acquisitions at suspiciously low prices, and shell corporations. One name, in particular, begins to surface repeatedly: a phantom limb of commerce, Ethel Corporation. It appears as a primary beneficiary, a major donor, a silent partner in every dubious transaction the journalist had flagged. Ethel Corporation, a name you'd heard whispered in the hushed corners of your past life, a conglomerate known for its opaque dealings and its uncanny ability to influence policy. The journalist wasn't just investigating a politician, they were dissecting a symbiotic relationship between political ambition and corporate greed. The Prosperity Bridge wasn't just a project, it was a conduit for illicit wealth, a monument to deceit. The murder, you realize with a sickening clarity, was not a random act of violence. It was a surgical strike, silencing a truth-teller on the cusp of exposing a conspiracy that could unravel a presidential campaign and dismantle a corporate empire. A sudden, sharp ping from an old, encrypted burner phone startles you, tearing you from the labyrinth of documents. An anonymous text, just 3 words: the border fence. No sender ID, no context, yet a visceral sense of urgency grips you. It's a location the journalist had mentioned once, a place of clandestine meetings, where the city's light bled into the desolate scrubland, a neutral ground for unsavory exchanges. The message feels like a summons, a dangerous invitation. You grab your worn leather jacket, the weight of its familiar comfort a small anchor against the rising tide of apprehension. Your vehicle bounces over an unpaved track, the headlights cutting through the inky blackness, revealing the rusted, imposing structure of the border fence. You park a discreet distance away, the engine cooling with soft ticks and groans. You step out, your boots crunching on loose gravel. You move with the practiced stealth of a hunter, your senses heightened, scanning the desolate landscape. Your eyes track the fence line, searching for any anomaly, any sign of movement. A glint of metal catches your eye, a small, almost imperceptible reflection near a cluster of scraggly bushes. You freeze, instincts screaming. Then, a sudden, blinding flash from behind you, followed by the roar of an engine. The screech of tires on gravel rips through the night as it swerves, aiming for your position. You scramble, your body remembering movements you thought long forgotten, ducking behind the sparse cover of a concrete barrier, a relic from an older, forgotten patrol station. The sedan slams into your empty car with a sickening crunch of metal, sending shards of glass scattering across the ground. They carry no visible weapons, but their intent is clear, etched in the aggressive set of their shoulders, the purposeful stride. They're not here for a conversation. Your mind races, assessing the terrain, the distance to the fence, the sparse cover. They split up, flanking your position. You wait, listening to the crunch of their boots. The heavier one approaches your side of the barrier. As he rounds the corner, you explode from cover, a phantom in the night. Your shoulder connects with his chest, a jarring impact that sends him stumbling back. Before he can recover, your foot sweeps low, catching his ankle. He goes down with a grunt, a heavy thud against the hard ground. The other figure, alerted by the commotion, is already closing in. You don't engage. This isn't a fight you can win, not alone, not out here. This is a message. The second figure gives chase, his footsteps surprisingly swift. You hear a sharp barked command, then the distinct click of a safety being disengaged. The bullet whizzes past your ear, a hot breath against your skin. You don't look back. You dive through a gap in the fence, a section where the wire had been cut years ago, now overgrown with thorny vines. You scramble through, tearing your jacket, feeling the sting of thorns on your arms. On the other side, you don't stop, pushing through the dense brush, your lungs burning, your heart hammering a frantic drum against your ribs. You hear their frustrated shouts, the revving engine of the sedan as it attempts to follow the fence line, but the terrain is too rough, the gap too narrow for a vehicle. You lean against a gnarled mesquite tree, gasping for air, the metallic taste of fear in your mouth. This wasn't a warning. This was an execution attempt. They know you're digging. They know you're close. And the forces at play are not only powerful enough to manipulate elections but ruthless enough to eliminate anyone who stands in their way. The journalist's murder was no random act. The stakes, you realize, are higher than you ever imagined. The city's pulse, a dull thrum against your windowpane moments ago, now beats with the frantic rhythm of a snare drum, echoing the tremor in your hand. The informant's raw voice, a rasping whisper about powerful men pulling strings, still claws at the edges of your hearing, a siren song to a deeper truth. You clench your jaw, Marcus. The past is not merely haunting you, it's reaching out, pulling you back into its suffocating embrace. The night air, thick with the exhaust of forgotten dreams and the distant wail of a siren, presses against your skin as you navigate the city's labyrinthine arteries. Each turn of the wheel is a deliberate act, a commitment. You leave the main thoroughfares behind, the streetlights thinning to sparse, flickering sentinels. The road becomes a ribbon of cracked asphalt, leading you deeper into the city's forgotten edges, where the urban sprawl gives way to scrubland and a stark, metallic horizon. They are a silhouette against the faint glow of the city behind you, their posture coiled, wary. You step out, the gravel crunching beneath your boots, each sound amplified in the vast quiet. The stranger moves with a practiced economy, coming to a halt a few yards away. Their face is obscured by the low brim of a cap. Their eyes, when they meet yours, hold the glint of desperation and fear. "You're late," the stranger rasps, their voice low, gravelly, like stones shifting in a dry riverbed. "Time is a luxury we don't have out here." "Information is a luxury I need," you counter, your voice steady, betraying none of the tension coiling in your gut. What did the journalist find? A signature. A place only. A trusted few would know. You take the paper. It's a photocopy of a handwritten note, faded but legible. The script is familiar, a looping, elegant hand that once filled countless notebooks in your old precinct. Your breath catches. It's their handwriting. The former precinct chief, your mentor, the one who always had your back, even when others doubted you. Riverbend, May 21st, transfer, Stonebridge, July 4th, acquisition. But beneath the last entry, scrawled in a frantic, N. Oakhaven. Oakhaven was the code name for the initial sting operation that had gone catastrophically wrong, the one that had cost you your badge. The one where critical intelligence had mysteriously vanished. "What does this mean?" you demand, your voice rougher than you intended, the paper trembling slightly in your grip. "Why my name?" The stranger leans in. Not just sloppy intel, Marcus. Deliberate misdirection. A sacrifice. Your career. It was a convenient casualty. A knot of ice forms in your stomach, spreading rapidly. You remember the internal review, the way the evidence against you had been so neat, so undeniable. You remember the chief's solemn face, the regret in their eyes as they signed the papers. You remember their words of comfort, assuring you it was a systemic failure, not a personal one. Who told you this, you press? The stranger replies, their gaze darting back to the fence. Someone who was there, pulling the strings, right alongside your chief. They engineered it. All of it. The Oak Haven failure, the journalist's investigation, your downfall. It was all designed to cover a larger operation. And you, Marcus, were the perfect scapegoat. The betrayal stings, sharp and sudden. The architect of your ruin, concealed behind a facade of mentorship and regret. The journalist hadn't just been investigating a politician, they were unraveling a carefully constructed web of deceit that had entangled your very life. You look at the note again, the looping script, the damning phrase. The blind spot. You realize with a sickening clarity that the journalist wasn't just observing you, they were observing the consequences of a decision made about you. The stranger hesitates, their eyes scanning the desolate landscape, their fear palpable. More than you think. Less than you need. A sudden, distant flash of headlights cuts across the horizon, growing rapidly brighter. They're coming. We have to go. You don't need to ask who they are. You clench the note, its words searing themselves into your mind. Marcus Thorne, once a victim of circumstances, now understands he was a pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing. And the game, it seems, has just begun. The note, crumpled now in your grasp, is a map to betrayal, its words searing your mind, but also forging a singular path forward. The vast, empty expanse behind you, punctuated by the rhythmic hum of distant machinery, recedes as you pull back into the skeletal embrace of the city's underbelly. You move, a shadow among shadows, along the broken spine of a forgotten industrial park. Rust-pocked corrugated iron walls loom, then vanish, replaced by the gaping maw of abandoned loading docks. The they from the note feels less like a whisper and more like a heavy hand pressing on your back, urging you onward, yet also promising a reckoning. The rendezvous point, scrawled hastily on the note's reverse, is an abandoned factory, a mausoleum of forgotten gears and dormant production lines. The air inside is a thick brew of dust, damp concrete, and the faint, metallic scent of decay. Your boots crunch on scattered debris, shards of glass, brittle plaster, the skeletal remains of pigeon nests. The vast, echoing space swallows the sound, amplifying the frantic beat of your own pulse. A figure materializes from the gloom, hunched and jittery, a silhouette against the faint moonlight filtering through a broken skylight. It is the informant, a low-level operative, caught between fear and a desperate need to cleanse. I heard them talking. About you. About the journalist. He thrusts a worn, nondescript USB drive into your hand. It feels cool, insignificant, yet its weight is immense. It's all in there. Everything. The real reason. The cover-up. The who dot. His eyes plead with you, mirroring a desperation that gnaws at your own resolve. I couldn't live with it anymore. The lies. The way they just erased her. Before you can question him, before you can ask for more, a distant thrum vibrates through the concrete floor. a low, guttural growl that grows steadily louder. An engine. Close. The operative's eyes widen further, his breath catching in his throat. "They're here," he whimpers, his body trembling violently. You hear a clang, a stumble, then nothing but the escalating roar of the approaching vehicle. You clench the USB drive. There is no time for further interaction, no space for comfort or assurance. The growl becomes a rumble, then a screech of tires outside the main entrance. You pivot, melting into the deeper recesses of the factory, your senses on high alert. You find a derelict office, its window overlooking a less frequented alley. Your fingers, despite the tremor of adrenaline, move with practiced speed. Files appear, a cascade of cryptic titles. They detail a sophisticated influence operation, designed to discredit political rivals, to manipulate public opinion through controlled narratives. But then, a name. The journalist's name, woven into the fabric of these communications, not as a target of discreditation, but as an obstacle. The journalist is proving tenacious, one email reads, signed by the strategist. Their inquiries into the candidate's offshore holdings are becoming problematic. Containment protocols initiated. Containment. It wasn't a random act. It was deliberate. Calculated. You scroll deeper. Financial ledgers, disguised as charitable donations, trace a circuitous route through shell corporations, funneling vast sums to a clandestine network of operatives and propaganda outlets. The sheer scale of it, the audacity, is breathtaking. A memo from the architect lays bare the horrifying truth of the cover-up. You had been played. They had woven a web so intricate, so flawlessly executed, that it had ensnared you, too. This isn't just about redemption anymore. This is about justice for the journalist, for the truth that was buried, for the integrity of a system you once believed in, that they have so thoroughly corrupted. The roar of engines outside grows louder, closer. Heavy footsteps echo from the main factory floor, accompanied by the beam of flashlights cutting through the gloom. They are inside. They are searching. You snatch the USB drive, pocketing it with a grim determination. The evidence is secured. The primary players are unmasked. The conspiracy's true nature laid bare. The personal cost? Irrelevant. The hunt has begun, and you are its unwavering spearhead. The digital fragments glow, a cold luminescence against the warehouse's shadowed corners. Your fingers, tireless, navigate the labyrinthine ledgers, each click a step deeper into the mire. The O from the previous entry solidifies, twisting into a grim reality: operations. A clandestine network of operations, siphoning vast sums, not for charity, but for something far more predatory. You trace the final, damning transfer, a shell company dissolving into thin air, its phantom funds earmarked for a single, unmistakable destination. The name of the politician, a stark, undeniable link, blazes on the screen. Then, the whisper of a breath against the silence. Not your own. A flicker on the rudimentary surveillance feed you rigged, a thermal signature, a ghost at the periphery of the abandoned factory's perimeter. They know. The distant thrum of heavy engines vibrates through the concrete floor, a low, predatory growl. No time for elaborate plans, only instinct. You snatch the encrypted drive, a lifeline clutched in your palm, and your service issue sidearm, its weight a familiar comfort. The back exit, overgrown with thorny vines, offers a slim chance. You burst into the night, the factory's skeletal silhouette a beacon of your recent presence. Floodlights erupt behind you, raking the desolate landscape. Shouts, curt and authoritative, echo. You are no longer just an investigator, you are prey. Your mind races, already mapping escape routes, discarding possibilities as quickly as they form. The old ways, the established channels, are closed. Every face you once trusted is now a potential snare. A payphone, miraculously functional in a forgotten corner of the city, offers a fragile connection. You punch in the numbers, a sequence etched into your memory from a lifetime ago. Listen, something big is happening. Tonight. A delivery, off the books. They're calling it Project Chimera. South End. Project Chimera. The name resonates with the journalist's cryptic notes, a phrase you dismissed as abstract until now. A desperate gamble, but the only lead. You move, a phantom in the urban sprawl, shedding the city's light for its deeper, forgotten arteries. You commandeer a battered utility truck, its keys left carelessly in the ignition, and drive, a single-minded arrow aimed at the desolate frontier. Finally, you arrive. The landscape is a stark canvas of desolation. A vast, imposing chain-link fence stretches into the gloom, topped with glinting razor wire, a silent barrier between nations. The air thrums with a low, mechanical hum, the sound of distant generators or unseen machinery. From your vantage point, you observe. It's not the usual patrol activity. Unmarked black SUVs idle near a service gate, their engines a low rumble. They are not border agents. They are the network. Through your binoculars, the scene sharpens. A large cargo container, hastily unloaded from a flatbed truck, is being opened. The men work quickly, their movements precise. You scan for any detail, any anomaly. Then you see it. A small, distinctive emblem on the side of a crate being carefully removed from the container. A stylized bird of prey, wings spread wide. It is the same symbol you saw on a digital file, buried deep within the journalist's encrypted archive, a logo for a defunct tech firm, a front for the politician's early, illicit dealings. And then, the revelation. Not just a symbol, but the contents. As a crate lid is briefly lifted, a glint of polished metal catches the harsh floodlight. Not weapons. Not drugs. Data servers. Rows upon rows of high-capacity storage, sleek and ominous. And beside them, smaller, metallic cases, similar to those used for secure document transport. It's not just money, it's information. The journalist wasn't just investigating financial corruption, he was on the verge of exposing a vast data trafficking operation, a digital arsenal designed to control, to manipulate, to destroy. The pieces slam into place with brutal clarity. A guard, bored or perhaps too diligent, is doing a wider perimeter check. Your cover is blown. They are here. And you are standing in the very heart of their conspiracy. This is the last breadcrumb, the desperate gamble whispered by a dying voice, a place where the journalist's pursuit of truth met its brutal end. Every rustle of dry weeds, every distant whine of a coyote, sharpens your senses, pulling the world into stark relief. The name, once an abstract whisper in the journalist's notes, now feels like a physical weight, a tangible threat. You move with the practiced stealth of a predator, eyes scanning, ears straining. The ground beneath your worn boots is uneven, a tapestry of loose stones and hardened clay. Ahead, the patrol road, barely more than a dirt track, snakes alongside the fence. This is not a place for casual passers-by. It breathes isolation, a perfect canvas for secrets. You remember the journalist's peculiar habit of marking significant locations, not with obvious symbols, but with subtle alterations to the environment, a stone overturned, a branch bent just so. Minutes stretch into an eternity of methodical searching. Your gaze sweeps across the rusted corrugated metal of the fence, the sparse, thorny scrub, the occasional weathered marker post. This is for the journalist, for the truth, for a semblance of peace that has eluded you for too long. Then, a flicker. Near a cluster of stunted mesquite bushes, where the fence line curves slightly, you notice it. A section of the lower fence, just above the ground, appears subtly different. The wire mesh, though rusted, seems to have been bent and then painstakingly bent back, but not perfectly. With a grunt of effort, you pry at the loosened section. This is it. Inside the cavity, nestled amongst dry leaves and packed earth, is a small, hermetically sealed container. Your heart thrums a frantic rhythm against your ribs as you retrieve it. It's heavy, solid. With trembling fingers, you twist the lid. The contents are simple, yet devastating, a ruggedized data drive and a stack of tightly folded, water-stained documents. You pull out the documents first, their edges softened by time and moisture. Handwritten notes, familiar from the journalist's earlier findings, fill the pages. But these are different. These are lists. Lists of names, dates, coordinates. The dates stretch back years, encompassing the period leading up to the journalist's murder. The coordinates point to desolate warehouses, abandoned factories, and remote underground bunkers scattered across the region. The names are unfamiliar, but the designations are horrifyingly clear. A system of human exploitation, of disappearances, of individuals reduced to mere commodities. You turn your attention to the data drive. Plugging it into the small, encrypted device you carry, you watch as files load. Video logs. Audio recordings. Scanned documents. It shows a series of nighttime transfers at what appears to be a desolate dock, individuals being moved from unmarked vans into larger, enclosed containers. The faces are obscured, but the desperation in their movements is palpable. An accompanying audio file plays, a clipped, authoritative voice giving orders, mentioning Project Chimera assets and delivery schedules. Then, a document flashes across the screen. A financial ledger. This isn't just about a campaign, it's about a vast, insidious operation that uses vulnerable lives as pawns in a terrifying game of power and profit. The journalist hadn't just uncovered a scandal, they had unearthed a monstrous crime against humanity, orchestrated by the very individuals sworn to protect it. The undeniable proof rests in your hands, heavy with the weight of shattered lives and corrupted power. It's enough. More than enough. The journalist's sacrifice was not in vain. A plan, sharp and dangerous, forms in your mind. To simply release this information would be to risk its suppression, to allow the powerful to spin their narratives. No, this calls for a bolder stroke, a direct challenge. You retrieve your secure satellite phone, its cold metal familiar in your grip. With swift, precise movements, you compose a message. Not to a colleague, not to an anonymous tip line. This message is personal, direct, and utterly uncompromising. You send it to a contact number you'd painstakingly acquired, a number known to be exclusively used by the politician's inner circle. But you also know that the truth, like a sharpened blade, is now firmly in your grasp. The stage is set. The final confrontation awaits. The ledger's stark digits burn behind your eyes, a searing truth etched in the glow of the screen. Vast sums, a serpentine flow through shell corporations, all converging on offshore havens. The architect of this intricate deceit, the signatory on the transfer orders, is the prominent politician. Your breath hitches, a cold knot tightening in your gut. It's where the deals are brokered, where the threads of power and illicit gain intertwine beyond the public gaze. You grasp the hard drive, its cool metal a promise in your palm. This is it. The final act. The drive to the border is a blur of intent. The vehicle hums beneath you, a low thrumming pulse mirroring your own. Each mile marker is a drumbeat, propelling you towards the precipice. Your gaze is fixed, unwavering, a predator closing in. No room for hesitation, no space for the ghosts of past failures to cloud your resolve. This is for the journalist, for the badge you lost, for the justice that hung suspended in the unforgiving air. The landscape is stark, skeletal. A gaunt, chain-link fence, impossibly tall, stretches into the inky blackness, a jagged scar across the horizon. The wind whips around you, a mournful lament, tugging at your coat, biting at your exposed skin. And there they are. Silhouettes against the faint glow of distant border lights. A small gathering. The prominent politician stands at the center, an aura of cultivated composure even in this desolate setting. Beside them, two figures, their postures rigid, their hands resting near their waists, the enforcers, their presence a silent, brutal promise. You step from the cover of your vehicle, the crunch of gravel under your boots echoing in the vast stillness. A private meeting, Senator? Your voice cuts through the wind, sharp as shattered glass. How? Unexpected. This is a restricted area. Your presence here is highly irregular. Their tone is smooth, oiled, the voice of a man accustomed to command. Irregularity is your métier, not mine, you retort, advancing slowly, the hard drive a tangible weight in your hand. The same irregularity that funnels millions through shell corporations. The same irregularity that authorized the silencing of an investigative journalist who got too close. The politician's eyes narrow, a subtle shift, but enough. With dates, amounts, and your signature. The same signature that approved the transfer of funds to a network of operatives, just days before the journalist's body was found. They had proof, didn't they? Proof of the bribes, the backroom deals, the systematic dismantling of justice. You pull a small, hardened device from your pocket, connecting it to the hard drive. A faint hum emanates. They were going to publish. They were going to expose it all. Not just for the money, but for the power, for the control. The journalist's death wasn't a random act. It was an execution. Ordered by you, to protect your presidential ambitions, to protect the network of influence you've meticulously built. The politician's composure cracks. A vein throbs in their temple. You have nothing. This is baseless slander. I have everything, you counter, the wind whipping your words away, then bringing them back with renewed force. The journalist found the link. They found the initial payment to the enforcer who lured them to that abandoned factory, under the guise of an anonymous source. They had a recording, a confession, detailing the organization's reach, its hierarchy, and your role at its apex. That recording, Senator, is now being broadcast to every news outlet, every digital platform, every corner of the internet. It's too late. A raw, animalistic fury contorts the politician's face. Stop him, they snarl, their voice losing its polished veneer, revealing the desperate predator beneath. The two enforcers surge forward, moving with brutal efficiency. One lunges, a blur of motion, aiming a swift, heavy blow at your head. You duck, the wind of their fist grazing your ear, and pivot, using their momentum against them. Your training, long dormant, ignites, a primal instinct taking over. You drive your elbow into their ribs, hearing a grunt of pain, then push them away, creating a crucial moment of distance. The other enforcer moves to flank you, their hand going to their waistband. You know what they're reaching for. The air crackles with the threat of violence. You don't have time to fight them both. Your focus is on the device, the truth it's broadcasting. You have to ensure it's secure, that the signal isn't cut. You dart backwards, towards the fence, using its metallic bulk as a temporary shield. The politician watches, their face a tableau of impotent fury and dawning horror. They know. They understand the irreversible damage you've unleashed. The journalist's final report, you yell, your voice hoarse, was titled The Spider's Web. You, Senator, are the spider at its heart. And tonight, your web unravels. The enforcers close in, their movements synchronized, a pincer attack. You brace yourself, the cold metal of the fence against your back. The broadcast is out. The truth is free. Whatever happens now, the world will know. The fight has just begun. Not with a bang, but with the searing glare of strobes and the guttural roar of engines. The enforcers, a dark tide closing in, freeze in the blinding light. A cacophony descends, sirens wailing, voices barking commands, the thud of boots on frozen earth. They scatter, some melting into the deeper gloom beyond the fence, others caught in the sudden, overwhelming embrace of official intervention. Your own eyes, accustomed to the low light, recoil from the assault. Shapes coalesce into uniforms, not the familiar, menacing black, but the stark blue and gray of the city's legitimate protectors. A hand, firm but not aggressive, grasps your arm. Marcus Thorne, a voice cuts through the chaos, you're coming with us. It's the lead investigator, a woman whose gaze is sharp, unyielding. Her face is grim, etched with a mixture of disbelief and grudging respect. You offer no resistance, your body a landscape of aches and tremors, but your spirit, surprisingly, feels lighter than it has in years. The broadcast. It worked. You are led away, past the grappling figures, the flashing lights painting a surreal tableau against the skeletal trees. One of the captured enforcers, a hulking brute whose eyes held a predatory glint moments ago, is now spread-eagled, his face pressed into the dirt. A small, almost imperceptible smirk touches your lips. Justice, in its own brutal way, has begun to assert itself. At a makeshift command post, hastily erected with portable lights and a buzzing generator, you are offered a thermal blanket and a cup of lukewarm coffee. The lead investigator sits opposite you, her posture rigid. The broadcast, she begins, her voice low, it went live. Every major news outlet picked it up. The feed was undeniable. A wave of exhaustion, profound and bone-deep, washes over you. This is the reveal you desperately needed. The truth, your truth, is finally out. The world is watching. It's damning. They underestimated the power of a single truth, broadcast to the masses. The investigator studies you, her expression unreadable. They underestimated a lot of things, Marcus. He was attempting to board a private jet out of the country. This is the event, the immediate consequence of your desperate gamble. The net is closing, swift and merciless. The architect of the conspiracy, though not yet apprehended, is feeling the ground shift beneath his feet. He's singing like a canary, she adds, a dry hint of satisfaction in her voice. Talking about a higher authority, a council that dictates policy, that arranged the journalist's silencing. Your years of chasing ghosts, of being dismissed, of carrying the weight of a failure that wasn't entirely yours, suddenly finds its vindication. The council. It's more than just one powerful figure, it's a network, vast and deeply entrenched. This is the next layer, the deeper cut, of the conspiracy. You feel the eyes of other officers on you, a mix of curiosity and grudging respect. No longer the disgraced detective, but the catalyst. The one who, against all odds, peeled back the veneer of power and corruption. The lead investigator stands, signaling the end of the informal interrogation. We'll need your full statement, Marcus. Everything. Through the window of the temporary shelter, beyond the pulsating lights, a news van is pulling up, its satellite dish already unfolding like a metallic flower. Reporters, their faces grim and eager, tumble out, microphones poised. The public reaction has begun, a tidal wave of outrage and demand for answers. Your personal cost, the years of isolation, the loss of your badge, the constant battle against your own demons, it all converges in this moment. Redemption, you realize, isn't a clean slate. It's a heavy burden, paid for in sleepless nights and constant vigilance, but it's a burden you are finally ready to carry. The fight, you understand, is far from over. This is merely the opening salvo in a much larger war. The news vans swarm, metallic insects drawn to the light, their satellite dishes unfolding like predatory blooms. Microphones bristle, a forest of eager intent, as reporters spill from their vehicles, their faces a canvas of grim anticipation. You watch from the periphery, a silent observer in the chaotic ballet, the pulsating lights reflecting in your unblinking eyes. The story, now, belongs to them, to the hungry lens and the urgent broadcast. The words echo in the temporary shelter, a phantom chorus of confessions and accusations. You recall the politician's face, contorted not by guilt, but by the sheer, unbridled shock of exposure. The tapestry of lies, meticulously woven over years, unraveled thread by thread, each strand a whisper of the truth the journalist had died to uncover. It wasn't a random act, a street crime gone wrong. It was a targeted silencing, orchestrated by the shadowy organization, its tendrils reaching into the highest echelons, ensuring their favored candidate, the politician, rose unchecked. The reporter's final article, unfinished on a hidden drive, detailed the intricate web, naming names, dates, and the precise moment of their betrayal. That article, once dismissed as mere speculation, was the very key you had needed, the ghost of a truth waiting patiently for your return. He had found the encrypted drive, buried deep within the journalist's apartment, overlooked in the initial, flawed investigation. It was the missing piece, the irrefutable evidence that connected the politician's campaign directly to the organization and, by extension, to the brutal silencing of the truth. The politician, a puppet on gilded strings, had feigned ignorance, then bluster, then finally, a terrifying, quiet resignation as the weight of the evidence crushed his carefully constructed facade. He wasn't the mastermind, merely a willing participant, blinded by ambition and the promise of power. This was not the end of them, you knew, but it was a wound, a deep, festering gash in their invincibility. Weeks later, the dust settled into a fine, pervasive layer, coating everything in a new reality. The politician's career lay in ruins, his name synonymous with scandal. Justice, perhaps, was not a swift, surgical strike, but a slow, grinding process, a relentless erosion of power. The chain-link fence, a skeletal sentinel, stretches endlessly under the pale, indifferent moon. A lone patrol vehicle. Its lights off, sits some distance away, a silent witness to your vigil. This place, stark and unforgiving, holds a strange resonance. It is a boundary, a demarcation between what was and what might be. You run a gloved hand over the cold metal mesh, feeling the rough edges, the unyielding strength. The ghost of your past failure, the searing shame of a case left unsolved, a life unavenged, finally feels distant. It is not gone, not entirely, for scars remain, but its spectral grip has loosened. The journalist's murder, once the indelible stain on your career, is no longer an open wound, but a healed scar, a testament to resilience. Redemption. It's not a grand, theatrical pronouncement, but a quiet, internal shift. A weight lifted, a breath taken deeply for the first time in years. You are not the same man who walked away from the badge, broken and bitter. The future stretches before you, an uncertain landscape under the vast, star-dusted sky. There is no badge waiting, no triumphant return to the ranks. That chapter is closed. But a new path beckons, one forged in the crucible of your experience, sharpened by the lessons learned. You have a purpose now, a clarity of vision that transcends the confines of a uniform. You turn from the fence, your gaze sweeping across the desolate expanse. The air holds a lingering tension, a reminder that the fight is never truly over, that vigilance is an eternal burden. But within you, a measure of peace has taken root, a quiet strength that hums beneath your skin. The ghosts are at rest, their stories told.